Good morning, it's Nick on Nick Time. Hello, thanks for joining me on Nick Time. Today I'm going to show you how to put a piano hinge, also known as a continuous hinge, onto a box. Piano hinges are great because they can hold a lot of weight and they keep your lid from twisting, whereas if you just used a couple small hinges, it might twist, and they look nice. Now what you'll notice is this has some thickness. You can get them in different lengths. I'll show you how to cut it in a second. And if I have, this is the lid of my box, if I just set this piano hinge on and screw it in, we'll be left with a huge gap here, and that's just unacceptable. So, to solve this problem, what we're going to do is cut out of the side of our box deep enough to match this width. At the front end, it's 3/32. But at the back here, this hinge might be a little warped. Back here I've got more like 5/32. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the hinge to length. I don't want it to go all the way to the edge of my box. I just want it to match this length. So I marked it there. I'm going to go grab my tin snips and just give it a slice. Make sure you know which side of the box is your back end. So I've got my mark here. I'm just going to open up the hinge, slice through it on one side, and then the other side, and then through the bar, and voila. And now you see how it's a little rough, so you can just grab your file, clean it up, grab your hammer, and flatten it out a little bit. Now if you wanted a cleaner cut, you could use a bandsaw. Also pay attention to where your holes are, because say I needed a hinge this long, I don't want to cut halfway through one of my screw holes. It's going to look bad. So I'd move it over, make the cut halfway between both your screws, and then cut off whatever you need to off this end so you can have more of a symmetrical look. This happens to be symmetrical enough for me. So now I'm going to open the hinge and lay it out on your box, and what this does is it squares it automatically for you, and you're going to want the bar to be hanging off the back because that's too thick to cut out to fit into your wood. So now if I look, this line's perfectly squared up to the edge of the back of my box, and once I cut it out, chisel it out, whatever, it's going to end up being, you see, 5/32. Then the top of this hinge will get screwed into my lid, and my lid will be able to sit flush and open up with this hinge. So you've got a couple of options here. When you're cutting it out, you can get your router and you can route it. You can get your chisel and you can chisel it. That way you're not likely to split anything. a look here. So now that I've got it how I like it, I pushed it in like here. I grabbed the sharp pencil and I made some marks in the center of those holes. I picked out my screws here. It's important that you drill pilot holes for these because you're going into finished material. It's not that thick. So what I'm doing now is temporarily installing the hinge. So measure your box, measure your lid. If your lid is bigger than the box, calculate the difference, split it, mark it out onto all of your sides. I used this thing. Remember which side is the back. This side, because it's got a chip in it, so ugly side to the back. Or just don't make it ugly to begin with. Just gonna take my box, lay out my hinge, on my lines. Do the same thing with my pencil. And if you got a sharp pencil into something soft like pine, like if it's oak, maple, hardwood, you're gonna use a scrawl. Now the other thing I'm gonna do is measure how deep I want to drill. Put this piece of tape here so that I stop. I'm gonna double check that that's not the entire thickness of my work. Okay, and looks fine, even though I did have to move it forward a little bit. You can see the hinges back here, nice and tight, all along the side. She's gonna like this. Okay, and you can see it. The hinge or the lid will hold itself open a little bit. Now I'm gonna take the hinges off, stain it. Well, actually, I've got to do an inlay first, so I'm gonna do that first. And I'm going to stain it, put it back, or clear coat it, some poly, put it back together. And it's going to be beautiful. Thanks for watching. I hope that helps.